certainly that makes sense. Again, it's a landlord issue. We're happy to raise it with the landlord. I haven't had time to do so. But we saw it. We saw it when we were out there, and it carries the water from the roof right to the paved area, right next to the patio. So it's a legitimate question, but it's really a landlord question.
And so the landlord hasn't addressed it?
I have not had a chance to raise it with him. I was out of town on Friday. This came up on the 19th.
All right. But that is key because I don't know if, are you gonna have 3-season outside seating or 4-season?
I think as weather allows.
As weather allows permit, so 4-season. That will become an issue if the weather is in.
No, it's a fair point.
And it should be closed if it is not addressed. My last concern is the fire department. If your capacity goes, have you heard a report from the fire department?
No, we've not. The only agency we've heard from was DDOT. And as I mentioned to the Design Review Committee, they asked us for clarification on the parking, which we provided. We've not heard from fire or the others in connection with the application.
Okay, because there is a reason why they, for the C2 zoning, that your capacity is 24 seating. And
so it's really not a fire code capacity issue, it's a zoning
issue. It will be
issue.
if you go up.
So we've got to go through fire, and certainly
Right.
fire's going to have to sign off on
Right.
it. They'll have an opportunity during the special exception comment period, which
Right.
is now, and also when we go in for occupancy certificate, they've got to sign off on it. You're absolutely right.
Okay,
But we've
because
not
they
heard
can,
from
they can engage better about how many people can get in, how many seats that can actually get in there.
Right.
I have a question. So you guys haven't put in for permits yet, right?
No.
So they don't have any input from fire because they haven't gone for permits.
All right, so
So-
we are sending our report to them, and I think that is key, because you'll have issues if, you're allowed, if their capacity says in zoning that it's 24, you go up to whatever they're gonna allow, and, the fire department can come in and close you down.
Well, if the fire department comes in and says no more than 32, that's the answer.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way that this works is that they'll put in their application within the DCRA, and the DCRA will do their reviews, which will include a fire review. And if the fire review says, no, you just can't go above 45, then they'll go above 45.
I understand that completely. My concern is that there is a reason why there's a limit of 24. And so I'm saying to you, and one of my suggestions to Starbucks well over a month ago was to go to the fire department and ask them to come in and do a site visit. And twice I went in there and I never got a response. So I don't know if it, the chicken before the egg. I understand what it is, but my concern is that I think 45 is too many. And there isn't a clear path for customer service. And so I think that we can ask DCRA to address it. But I do think that those are my changes.
Let me ask you a question. If they came back and showed us a plan for 50 that worked,
I don't have a problem with 45, except that there isn't a clear intrinsic path, and I don't think designating an entry and exit is customer service friendly. I think the people will come in where they can get in and go out where they can go out. But my problem is within the interior itself, that there is no intrinsic path.
so if they came back with a design that had an intrinsic path that exceeded 50 and showed some dimensions that actually showed that they're compliant to the code, would that satisfy you in order to say, yes, they can have 50 seats?
Right.
If you wanna change the amendment, can you move to change the amendment and we'll get a second and then we can move
But
on from there?
I'm still,
Well, we're gonna have to, do something with getting the time control and whatnot. If you want to do something? Yes,
I think I know the code.
you think you know the code?
The code is 49, if it's less than 49 seats or whatever,
Yeah.
49 people, there's one means of egress. And if you wanna get a change mind, you have to go through PC.
Yeah, so they can eliminate one of the entrances.
One egress and one egress, one egress. Sarah?
I I just want to clarify some of the things that went in front of the committee.
Mhm.
And thank Mr. Donahue again, for the time that he spent. First of all, the entrance and egress issue, I want to make sure we're clear about it. What we were concerned about as a committee was that parking lot is very, very confusing, and it is very difficult, especially the big SUVs come in. And so what we were concerned about is doing arrows or doing signs or something so that you can't take your car in and out on Carroll, and you can't take your car in and out on Maple. That there's a flow, there's a one-way in and out. That's on the parking lot.
Mhm.
I understand Commissioner Jones' point about, you're talking about inside, about when you queue up to go in and get a cup of coffee. Is that what you're talking about? Inside. That's another good point, and that's a separate issue. And the way that came up is that Dave Hamilton, in looking at this interior site plan we got, looked at the circular table. There was a 5-person, and it seemed like right in the middle of when people came in either direction.
Mhm.
And he said, gee, I think this table's in the way. I don't think this table is well placed.
Mhm.
So let's get rid of this table, this circular table, if you see it in there. And if you get rid of it, it'd have to be 5 seats. If you get rid of that circular table, then you have this, the idea was to have an open area, as Commissioner Jones has pointed out, in front of the cash register, so that, and there's 2 entrances, doors. One is Maple, one is Cedar, and so you're not just cluttering up, you're not putting stuff, chairs and tables in the path that people will be tripping over it. So that entrance stuff, coming in on both sides, inside the restaurant, is an extremely good point.
Mhm.
So you may want to decide, I don't know how you want to deal with that, but I just wanted to clarify that. The other issue is the drain pipe. And that's something that Faith Wheeler was very concerned about. She brought it to our attention, and she's absolutely right. That drain pipe would let water out. I mean, really, right at the front, at one of the front entrances, and it would literally splash down where people have their feet if they're sitting outside.
Okay.
So that is a big deal. While I understand that it is a landlord issue, certainly Starbucks can't go digging around in a building they don't own and, replacing walls or whatever. I talked to someone from BZA, staff person Stephen Varga today from BZA, just to ask, because this came up about the drain pipe. And I said, well, how does that go? Is this drain pipe issue something that BZA can address in this special exception, or is this just the landlord issue? How would that work? And Mr. Varga told me that the drain pipe issue is not specifically part of the special exception per se. It's not. However, BZA and all the zoning talk about health and welfare and hazards, and so it is generally part of the reason zoning exists, is to address this health and welfare issue, which this is. And he said the commission could certainly use the issue, or put the issue of the drain pipe in there. The BZA would look at it, and they would make a determination about relevancy. And he said in the past, BZA has addressed issues like that drain pipe, like congestion in a parking lot, whatever, even though it may not specifically be part of this special exception language. And he said anything the commission feels it affects the health, the welfare, just how people are treated, how people would use that as a safety issue, that BZA certainly wants to hear about it, and they will make a decision based on that. And so if you have concerns about the interior, people tripping over chairs inside, any of that, the commission is allowed to deal with.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Spot here, where are we? So you finished your presentation?
Yes, I am.
guess design review has given their presentation, and was that your presentation, Ms.?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
yeah, the resolution's pretty clear.
Okay, yeah. So. Well, yes, that's pretty good. Well, all right. Let's see. First, we'll have an adoption to approve this resolution, 17-10-0104. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as is? Then we'll worry about the amendments. No motion, no.
I'll move to accept.
Any second?
Second.
Okay. Now,
So
now we're gonna
now
talk,
you will amend.
yeah,